What's going on, people? I hope everybody is cool. So, I wanted to hop on here real quick, man, to talk about something that recently went down on Fox News with Donald Trump. And I want you all to check out the clip. Now, there was a conversation about what history will be taught in American schools, specifically around slavery and colonizers and KKK and, stuff like that. Now, on the interview with Donald Trump and Fox, hosts, at one point, the interviewer asked Donald Trump a question. He said, what about those schools teaching that America was built on the backs of slaves on stolen land, you see? And without skipping a beat, Donald Trump responded that he'd defund those schools. I want you all to check out this clip, and then I'm going to be back with the commentary. Check it out.
Here's what bothers
Central Cast.
here's what bothers me about that. So let's say you have a liberal city, let's Los Angeles, San Diego, and they just decide we're going to get rid of that history. We got new history. This is America built off the backs of slaves on stolen land. And that curriculum comes in.
Then we don't send them money. We would save half of our budget.
Okay.
And we're going to send. But if they want to do that,
because you do lose control when you go lower.
We've lost control. We're number 40. We're last on the list. Okay. We're the worst there is, and we spend more money than.
Okay, now you all just heard that, right? Now, what stood out most to me wasn't what Trump said, okay? It was who said nothing, okay? Now, if you look to the left of the screen, there was a black man right there on the panel with them, sitting silently, okay? Didn't flinch, did not object, just silence. And sadly, this isn't unusual when it comes to some black Republicans, man. I've said this before in other videos. Time and time again, some black Republicans fall into this role where they're just there to nod their head and nod along, okay? Even if what's being said spits in the face of their own history and ancestors. This could have never been me. Never, okay? I don't even think that host would have had the guts to ask that if I was there, okay? Because they would have already known my energy, okay? It's like, yeah, dude, I'm a Republican, but I'm not a bootlick. Right? You're not going to say anything crazy around me. They all would have known that energy from me, okay? Some black Republicans, man, act as if standing up to these people risks too much, all right? So they choose silence instead of truth. But you all must know that silence sometimes speaks as well, okay? Sometimes silence tells us everything that we need to know. Now, let's unpack what the host asked Donald Trump, because he said, what about those, those schools who teach that, America was built on the backs of slavery, on stolen land? What about them? What are you going to do about those guys? So let's dive into those comments. Let's unpack it real quick, because some people don't know what those comments mean, okay? Now, this country was built by slaves. I'm going to say it again. This country was built by slaves. Now, that isn't just a phrase thrown around. It's actually literal, okay? Black people were enslaved and forced to build the foundation of this country. From New York to Washington, D.C., slave labor built countless pieces of the nation's infrastructure and monuments. Okay? The White House itself, the Capitol building, Monticello, and many historic landmarks were all built by black hands, unpaid suffering in conditions we can barely imagine today. If you've ever been to Charleston, South Carolina, or Virginia, you're standing on bricks laid down by enslaved black folks. Even tourist attractions, from plantations in the South to those of old, classic mansions, slave labor. And yet, some do not want this to be taught to their children. They don't want our kids knowing this reality. Okay? They don't want their kids knowing this reality. And as far as stolen land, okay, let's be clear. Before colonizers arrived, there were Native American nations thriving here, okay, with complex cultures, communities, and rich history. Tribes like the Cherokee, Sauk, Apache, and Iroquois lived all across what we now call the United States of America until colonizers arrived, waged war, pushed indigenous communities off their land, and took control by any means necessary, even death. They did not discover America, they took it. Okay? To ignore that fact in our schools is to ignore the very truth of how America came to be. That's what the stolen land comment means. Okay? But they know that. They just want to try to ignore that. But back to the black man sitting on the panel. I can't get over this, dude. Back to the black man sitting on the panel. It could have never been me. I would have objected. I would have said, hold on. I would have said, calm your nerves, something. I already know, but I don't think he would have even said that around me. Seriously. You know, the black dude's silence, man, it was like 1,000 words. When someone sits in that room, hearing about defunding schools that tell the truth about black history, and they choose to stay quiet, especially as a black man, even if you support Donald Trump or not, you stay quiet, okay? When you hear that about your ancestors, it speaks to some kind of fear. It speaks to a cowardness, you know? It speaks to a spineless type of thing, you know? A fear that you all have, that some black Republicans have of being casted out from a certain circle, okay? Kicked out of MAGA or losing access or favor. For some, staying silent or just nodding along is how they hold on to whatever position they have, even if it means betraying their own people's legacy, history, etc. Excuse me. That silence, man, is loud, and it's actually painful to witness, man. All right. Me personally, I won't never forget what slavery entailed. All right. Never. It was about the complete stripping away of humanity, torture, separation of family, right? Forced labor from dusk till dawn, murder, and complete degradation. Imagine this for generations across centuries. So for a black person today to sit in a space where they're trying to erase or silence that history is shameful. It's shameful. It's pathetic. It's pitiful. And it's definitely cowardice. Okay? It's full-fledged cowardom. Okay? And it makes you question what's more important, man. Is it truth or is it power? Well, to some black Republicans, it's just power. Let me sit here while they disrespect my ancestors and not say a thing because I don't want to be booted out of here. Okay? Straight up cowards, man. I would have never did it. Couldn't have been me. Could not have been me. I'll end with this Bible verse, man. Joshua 1:9 says, quote, be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Unquote. Real courage means standing up for truth, no matter where you are. Peace.